It was in what's called the NDAA, which is National Defense Appropriation Act, and that's what funds our military. So a amendment was introduced for selective service, for women to register in the selective service. And my views on it are, I think we need to have this dialogue because certainly women have a much more prominent place in the military than years past. The administration has decided to open up all MOSs, all duties to women, and along with that would be then the registering for selective service. And I think it was an important dialogue to have. I ended up voting against it because I don't think there's any compelling interest, given the numbers of women in service compared to men, and right now the demand. So I think it's too premature to mandate it, but I think nationally it's important to have the dialogue.
Is it possible for them to, for the committee or for the military or the government itself, to make this an option that could be installed if we end up in a war footing where females would be drafted at a certain point?
Well, it certainly is a possibility. That's why the selective service, registration was set up. In the event that we need personnel in a draft, then that database is the selective service. So it is certainly possible. Where we're at in the process right now is it passed out of the National or the House Armed Services Committee, which I'm a member. It passed. Now it goes to the full floor. There could be an amendment to remove it, or not. And then the Senate has their side of the NDA as well. I talked to Senator McCain today about where they sit overall. I think the most important issues, however, are not selective service. I think the most important issue is to make sure that our troops that are in harm's way today, which are both men and women, have the right equipment, the right training, and the right rules of engagement to win decisively. I think that is the most important mission that Congress has, is to make sure that our troops have what they need. And then the discussion about selective service, I think it's an important issue that we should have a dialogue among all Americans. This is why Duncan, Hunter, and myself were the two to introduce the original bill, because I think we need to have a discussion as Americans whether or not this is appropriate, and certainly having the amendment passed yesterday, as a part of that national dialogue.
Well, let me ask you this. What has been the reaction from your constituency here in Montana towards the fact that you and Representative Hunter have made this a part of the bill?
Well, ironically enough, we both voted against it. We introduced it because I think that the dialogue was important. We both voted against it. In my part, I just don't think there's a compelling reason to at the moment, just because of the numbers and the trained personnel. And should we go to a draft today, I'm not sure the numbers of females in the force would mandate it. And so I think we have to be careful about it. We don't know, added costs. There's a lot of things that are still yet known. But I think it was really important to have the discussion with it, and it could very well mean that in time of need, should the selective service database be called up, that both women and men are drafted into service.
Sure. Are you hearing from women specifically that, yes, this is something that I want, or no, this is something I don't want for myself or my daughter?
Well, where this fits in the issues, the number one issue is still the economy. It's hard to make a living in Montana. There's a lot of regulation away from core businesses. It's certainly challenging. national security is an issue about whether we're safe. Emerging Iran, immigration. A reasonable policy is a concern in Montana, and then of course our water rights, our gun rights, our individual rights. Those rank far above this particular issue. But what I'm hearing is fairly muted. Not really hard on both on both sides. It's the same as males, high school students registering for selective service. Not a lot of impact at the moment because the draft doesn't seem imminent.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it's and even Secretary Kerry in one of his recent speeches talked about public service and perhaps all volunteer military. Maybe we need to look at it, and maybe it's not voluntary. Maybe it's everyone has a mandatory public service, whether it's in the Department of Interior or the Department of Defense or some uniting public good. And that was an interesting comment from Secretary Kerry. But I think registering for the selective service, right now it's fairly muted.
Gotcha.
I would not say it's in the top 10 of issues.